I know it seems like I'm really hard on Miami, and my context is that we live in a pretty shishi neighborhood here in the most urban part of the city. And I am comparing it to other bigger cities where we've lived before. We've lived in Chicago, we've lived in Houston, and my partner hasn't lived in Washington, D.C., but I'm from the Baltimore, D.C. area, and I've lived actually in Washington, D.C. So those three cities are bigger than Miami, arguably more powerful culturally and financially than Miami. And they were arguably nicer places. Nicer meaning the people, nicer. And Miami has its strengths. I mean, like if you are looking to live in a place that really doesn't have winter, then obviously that's a big plus for you. Um, but for me, there is nothing here in Miami that I can't get more and better of elsewhere. Um, and that might sound like an arrogant or cocky statement, but I really don't mean it that way. I'm not a wealthy jet setter, but I work in the airline industry. I've had my job now for almost 25 years. So for the past 25 years, I've been traveling the world. So wherever it is that I live, I I leave on a regular basis and fly around the world and stuff. So I'm never fully trapped, if you want to call it that, wherever it is that I live. So and then I have a background of growing up, going to visit my family in Greece. I grew up in suburban Baltimore. I lived in the Baltimore, Washington, D.C. area for the first, I think, like 27 years of my life for the most part. Um, so I have an experience of traveling the world, growing up in a fairly cosmopolitan area. And for me, Miami is nothing special. It's not that there aren't good people here or special things or people here. There are. But it's not special to me based on my experience. Okay. So when I run into the arrogance and the narcissism and the rude behavior that I see here more so than any place I've lived or visited, it really irritates me because I'm kind of like, the place doesn't even deserve the arrogance. And that probably sounds arrogant saying that, but I'm really irritated by arrogance. And there are a lot of arrogant, narcissistic, and rude people here. So part of it is a function of where we live in Miami. We live in the most urban part of Miami in the high rise neighborhoods. It's kind of shishi, and this is where a lot of wealthy people live or wannabe wealthy people live. We didn't really move into this neighborhood for that. We moved here because we had moved to Miami unexpectedly and in a hurry, and we moved into the building of someone we knew. Just it kind of just made things easier. But it turns out once we were living here that I was like, what the hell is going on here? Because again, like I said, I've lived in Chicago, I lived in Houston, I lived in Washington, D.C., all three of them bigger than Miami, more powerful than Miami, wealthier than Miami. And I was like, wow, these people are super narcissistic, arrogant, and rude. Um, it's had we moved into a more humble neighborhood, maybe I would like Miami more, but this was a really bad introduction to Miami for me. So unfortunately, it's colored my opinion of Miami, and now I'm like Agent Smith in the Matrix. I kind of hate this place. Hate is a strong word, but comparing it to where I've lived and where I've traveled in the world, I'm just kind of like, yeah, This place does not deserve the credit it gets. My opinion, of course. You are free to like Miami if you want to. So that's kind of what's going on there. We live in a neighborhood that is probably the worst place to live if you don't like arrogant, narcissistic, and rude people.